So we spent the morning talking about the buy and sell side connections, right? Paul, I'm going to start with you. From an agency perspective, how are you selecting your SSPs, or how are you working directly with the supply path in terms of delivering that brand advertising to the audience? So tell me a little bit more about how Omni's going about that.
It's been front and center of our strategy since 2017, quite frankly. I mean, back then we had a massive issue around fraud, and one of the things that we started looking at was, do you actually need all these URLs in an inclusion list? Do you need to be partnering with all the SSPs in the industry? I did some analysis back then to see that we're partnering with 45 plus SSPs plus BidSwitch. You're kind of going, this doesn't make a lot of sense. So super curation's been at the forefront of our strategy, really getting closer to the publishers and understanding who is their primary and secondary SSPs. So on the buyer side, we always have a primary and secondary DSP strategy. So understanding that was crucial. We built a capability called the Acumen platform back in the day, which was just understanding SKU level understanding of the inventory, to be able to move to more of a publisher-first private marketplace approach. So it's front and center, and now we're just processing a lot more data and kind of bringing customized algorithms and approaches into it.
Are you seeing your brand performance to be much higher as a result of limiting the number of partners that you're working with? Talk 100%. A little bit more about that.
Yeah. So if you take a step back, if we've now got the reds from the DSPs, we now understand each individual ad placement on a site, on an app. We now have the opportunity to map that to the brand. Not all brands are the same. So in the early days of programmatic, it was all ships rise and rising tide. Today, it has to be customized to them. The brand outcome of a auto client is different to a QSR and so on. So I think it's just that super curated approach that we're now able to optimize is really crucial.
No, that's awesome. So now, if you think about it from a publisher perspective, specifically as it pertains to CTV, again, I saw that announcement with Amazon. Huge congrats on that. Roku is a huge partner of ours. Again, thank you for being here. How are you looking at that connection point and your need to be closer to the buy side?
Yeah, so I would say, we think about it as we have primary SSPs and ad servers that are core to our business, and they help us with different deal types, be it PG or PMPs. But ultimately, what we're starting to see is, on the buy side, them having preferred partnerships with some SSPs and the ability to have connections to multiple SSPs and prioritize them based on clients or holding companies where they have favorable economics or preferred partners. And again, when we talk to our SSPs and to our agency partners, SSPs are supply-side platforms. They are going to integrate, and we're going to choose the ones that are best for our technology. But there are certain things that multiple platforms can do, and if certain agencies are trying to invest more heavily there, and we can help them meet their spend goals or hit their business outcomes, we're going to be as flexible as we can.
So with just a quick follow-up on that, obviously it's very complex. There's a lot of SSPs. I talked about it earlier in terms of the need to actually reduce, brands are reducing, buyers are reducing the number that they're working with. Do you find that to be, are you doing that in collaboration with the agency, or are you doing independently? Like, for example, if you have SSPs that you've worked with, like who's the decision maker?
Yeah, so we're the decision maker, the publisher.
Okay.
I would say CTV is very different than most other mediums.
Yeah.
In the way that we've built our own Roku exchange, and the way that we treat demand sources, both DSPs and SSPs. We operate a holistic auction. But at the end of the day, media isn't proliferated across as many SSPs. Typically, for CTV publishers, we tend to work with one or two core platforms, both for ad serving and SSPs. But even within that small bucket of a few partners, we can have some flexibility based on the agency's needs.
Okay. And Serge, is that?
Similar, but so for us, what we've done is we've exclusive on one ad server. So we have an exclusivity on an ad server, which is we leverage Magnite's SpringServe ad server, but that's just from an ad server. And then from a preferred SSP, we end up working with obviously we work with Google. We work.
Thank you very much.
We work with Magnite, with Freewheel, with Index, and some others. But it's really all we can't go work with 10, 15 others. And what we have also found out is, yes, exactly what Miles said is the agencies are now creating their own marketplaces. They all have their preferred SSPs. Some of it is all based on economics, right? It's what's in it for them. Everybody has to win, so that makes sense for them. What's interesting for us is if we're going to go work with SSP A versus SSP B, it needs to have incremental demand. Because what we'll do is we will then prioritize XYZ SSP in the waterfall. But if you end up prioritizing both of them at the same level, and they both are just competing on the same demand, then what have you really achieved, right? Now, if there's unique demand, if it's like national holdco versus local, that actually makes it more interesting for us. So it's all about, at the end of the day, what's the unique demand for us to go ahead and work with additional SSP partners.
I'm sure, you have quite a bit of inventory, so pricing comes into play as well. Right.
Pricing is always a factor. Pricing has come down quite a bit in terms of CPMs in the past year, to say the least.
Lower.
And it will always go lower. Now, what we can't do is have a race to the bottom. We really can't have a race to the bottom. I think there are certain things that are happening in CTV that will not get us there. But you know what? The holdco business, there's a bunch of mergers going on. There's a lot of, everybody's getting squeezed. Everybody's getting squeezed, but we can't end up having CTV being at $5. That is not something where we should all be working for.
So on that note, Paul, from an agency perspective, how are you managing that? Obviously, you have a brand that comes in, you have a certain KPI you have to deliver, a certain average pricing you have to meet. How are you looking at that from a pricing perspective in terms of how do you ensure you're getting to that average without it rushing to the bottom for some specific supply paths?
I think we've got to be mindful all formats and screens are different. So look at something like a CTV format. You've got to respect the fact that a publisher will probably have a rev share with a content provider, so you can't get it down to $2, $3, $4, and it doesn't make sense anyway at that level. It really comes down to what is the outcome of the client and what are we trying to achieve that moment in time. You've always got to find the value exchange, and I fundamentally believe that for this ecosystem to thrive, everybody has to win. There has to be a client benefit, there has to be a user benefit. And I actually think we spend not enough time talking about the user. Because if your user experience is high, the ad opportunity is going to be higher, which then will give me the opportunity to maybe getting down to 501. But the reality, though, is it comes down to each format's different, and we just need to counter that to what we need to achieve. Yes, our clients will always drive the rate down. That's our job as an agency. But then changing the conversation from rate to effectiveness. So great, I can buy something at $1, but if it doesn't work, it's wasted money. Yep. So I think bringing the conversation back to effectiveness is crucial.
Okay. No, that's great. Thank you. Miles, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I was going to say to your initial question, one of the things that I think is a consistent conversation for a lot of partners here is outcomes now, right? And the idea of all media being accountable and performant, which I think a lot of us would say it always should have been. But I think that is directly correlated to price, because a lot of the times people say low CPM, better yield or lower yield, right? You can make that more attributable, better ROAS, but not every impression is created equally. And as a publisher and publishers that are operating in an environment where there is more supply, it's our job to actually throttle supply to the right verticals and make a QSR outcome different than an auto outcome, because auto wants reach and frequency and a QSR wants to sell a taco, right? And those impressions need to be weighted differently, and we need to figure out how to match the supply with the demand.
I think I just want to add on outcomes and on what Paul said, 100% agree on the outcomes, except that we're not, or maybe it's specific to us, but we're not seeing it as advertisers coming to us and saying, you got to guarantee this outcome for this particular buy. It's part of the reporting, it's part of the measurement, but it's not part of the guarantee. I think eventually, if we want to make this, is to actually give them a guarantee and saying, because then there's endless budgets, right? Like they only pay us based on XYZ KPI, right? That's the thing. Back to Paul's point, everybody does have to win. Everybody does. And frankly, this is why I think in the past year and a half, you've seen massive surges, especially in CTV, with all the principal trading firms within all of the holdcos, right? The Omnets, the Orions, the Apexes of the world. It's because everybody has, whether it's disclosed or not disclosed, everybody's getting squeezed, but everybody has to win. Not just the publisher, not just the holdco, but also the buy side. You know, the advertiser also has to win. So we have to all think of it as we're all in this together.
No, that's great to hear because that is a big part of the conversation, right? As we think about, again, getting closer to the inventory source, commercials, unfortunately, is key. And I think to your point, just ensuring that we understand to what extent everyone has to win is something that we all have, or as leaders, have to, keep that in mind because publishers have to continue making their share, but at the same time, the agency model is also getting squeezed, right? So we have to ensure that they make their share as well. Question for you, Miles. CTV is where it's at, right? So despite all the formats, there's an enormous amount of shift in ad spend going to CTV, and it's primarily because that's where the users are going, right? So you want to be in front of your audience. The users are going towards CTV. So when you think about it from an LG and specifically Roku perspective, how do you ensure that brands have a better understanding of your inventory? Like, talk to me about some of the signals that you're working with. How does that come into play?
Yeah, so CTV still heavily underinvested. I think Serge would agree with that compared to where eyeballs are. I think that was the case with mobile for many years, and it finally caught up. But now I would say mobile and social are probably overinvested. And our job is to be places like here, talking directly to brands and agencies and educating them. Roku's in 1 out of every 2 households in North America. We're the largest broadband penetration in the US for streaming. And I think the story that LG probably tries to tell, that we often try to tell, is the opportunity before the stream. I think most of the dollars that have moved into streaming have gone from linear to video. It's been a natural progression that should be going faster. But within CTV, we've created a ton of different ad formats. Our home screen, all the different interactivity, and those are big, high-impact display units that weren't typically bought by a TV team. And those should be bought by a digital team or by a programmatic team. And the hardest thing with agency is teaching them to buy something new where the dollars aren't necessarily allocated already to a group of people. And that's where humans kind of sometimes get in the way of the right business decisions. And that's where we've seen the most innovative brands stepping in and saying, I don't care who at my agency actually does the buying. I need to own this for the Super Bowl or March Madness or whatever that is.
Okay, no, that's
I
great.
think the home screen is a great example. I'm actually not going to say much about it. I'm just going to hand it off to Shep because programmatically, so we've moved the home screen buying to programmatically as well. And it was traditionally on managed services. It was traditionally only for media and entertainment clients. We said, why does it have to be media and entertainment? We decided to go general market. Everybody else followed us and said, why does it have to be managed services? Let's do that programmatic as well. And then Mr. Shepard came on board.
I think one of the things that we've all got to start doing is putting packaging around the inventory. Because if you're talking about a very much a US capability, which is we have an upfront, we have the TV buying team, CTV should be bought by teams. I don't see the team. It's irrelevant now.
Great.
Yeah, where it needs to go is the client why. So the reason why I'm passionate about home screen is many of us on this panel, except for me because I'm the investment head, will be behind subscription-based capabilities. We will be like Instagram. If you want to reach these audiences, you have to be where they are. As I'm entering Netflix or Roku or LG's channels, that home screen is prominent. You can now tell beautiful brand stories with this capability. I think it's the most underutilized ad format on the internet today, and I think it's a very powerful capability. The trouble is I don't think we're telling the story. If you want to reach me, that's where you've got to be.
Hear, hear.
All right, we're running out of time, so I want
That
to.
wasn't a setup, by the way.
I want to get to AI. So AI is massive. We know that. I talked about it a little bit with John. But at the same time, the AI transformation could be a bit murky in terms of how it translates to real world. So from all of your perspective, I'd love to hear, how are you using it now in your businesses? But if you had a vision for 3 years out, how would you like to use it in the future? Go ahead, Miles.
I'll go first. So I would say we're thinking about it in 2 main ways. One is on the consumer side. Back to the home screen, one of the big constraints with streaming and CTV in general, and we all probably feel this as consumers, is the amount of time to get into content, right? You go into HBO Max and you're like, whatever, I'll go into Netflix and whatever. The average person spends 8 to 11 minutes a night just dancing around and find stuff on TV. We're really focused on using AI to build better personalization and recommendation engines, which then leads to more ad opportunities and putting stuff in front of the content before people enter the stream. And then I would say on the other side of it, in just like the programmatic tonnage on the video side of our business, we're really focused on this idea of demand path optimization. So how can we look at all the different ways a specific brand is buying our inventory through a number of different platforms and help them actually clean up how they are buying both from their SSPs as well as the different DSPs and helping them come directly to us to get a more efficient path.
So demand path optimization, so someone should put that in quote, because we've been so focused on supply path optimization. So I think that's going to be a big cans follow-up. Paul.
Look, for our businesses across the board, machine learning / AI is not new to us. We've been utilising it for a long time. The question now is how do we bring the agentic capability into it? So how do you make it do multiple things? So right now, you're seeing us automate a campaign workflow. You're seeing us utilise that SKU level understanding we've been building and supercharging it. It's just growing so fast. So this is the exciting time. Just speaking to someone before, I haven't really talked about programmatic for a while. Programmatic's it's just how we do stuff. Now we're back to, okay, how do we now utilize this at scale? So from planning to optimization to measurement, we're investing heavily, and we're using it, and you're seeing the outputs for clients.
Nice. For us, it's three things. It's discovery. It's the worst, by the way. If you're there for 10, 12 minutes before you can figure out which program you're going to watch, good luck. You're probably going to turn it off anyway. So discovery is really, really key. Creative optimization is where we're leveraging AI quite a bit. And then the third thing is we've invested quite a bit in an analytics platform, leveraging AI so that we can actually take all of our data, our inventory, but also more of our ACR data globally and make it easy for agencies like Omnicom to actually leverage it. Because otherwise, it's just raw data. What do you do with that? Not a lot of companies can actually have access to it or know what to do with it. They just don't have the resources. Having an AI-based platform to leverage that is the key.
You mentioned creative optimization. I know we don't have much time, but I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so for us, it's like down to, so we've been like a massive content partner of ours, actually I have a meeting with them right after this, has come to us and said, how do I go down to a segment level and target the individual on our home screen, but based on that household should get a different creative based on all of the characteristics that we both know. I know a lot about the user, they know a lot about. So I know exactly their demos, their emails, what they're doing on LG, but they know everything that they're watching on this content partner. How do we marry up this data in real time and then present to them the best creative option?
Your brands must be really excited about that, Paul.
But this is the opportunity now. This is why, as buyers, we've always partnered with the sell side, but a lot of these decisionings are now happening on the sell side. And this is unique insights that I think publishers have the opportunity to really bring to the floor, and advertisers have the opportunity to plug in. It's exciting times.
Awesome. Miles, any closing words?
No, thank you.
Okay. Paul, Miles, Serge,
Thank
thank
you very
you
much.
so much.
Thanks for having us.